They say they want to stand there. That's why I asked the question. Just to block which one is here.
Good afternoon. My name is Nati Tobe. I'm going to be a program director for this important event. I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep you here for the next 1 hour. Let me extend special greetings to our dignitaries at the head table. And I'm hoping that, as I say, we will be able to go through the program very, very fast. Just to take you through the program, we're going to have remarks by the Judge President, the Honorable Judge President Liu. After Judge President Liu, we'll then hear from the Chairperson of the IEC, Mr. G. Mashinini. And after that, it will be remarks from Ms. B. Chawa, the Acting Secretary of Parliament. And after her, Ms. Modise, the Honorable Mr. Modise, the chairperson of the NCOP, will also give us some few words. I will then hand over to the Honorable Chief Justice to give his short address. After that, we will then have a handover in front of the banner where they are standing right now, and that will be the end of our program. So we are a little bit behind by a few minutes, so I'm going to go straight to the agenda and ask the Honorable Judge President Leo to come to the podium to give us the opening and welcome remarks. She will also give us the purpose for today. Honorable JP.
Honorable Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Chief Justice Mogoeng, Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Ms. Thandi Modise, Justices of the Constitutional Court, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Ms. Rasiriti Tau, Honorable Judge President of KwaZulu-Natal Division of the High Court, Mr. Justice Ahmad Jabi, Honorable Judge President of Limpopo Division of the High Court, Mr. Justice Ephraim Makhoba, Honorable Judge President of the Mpumalanga Division of the High Court, Mr. Justice Francis Lekhodi, Honorable Judge President of the Northern Cape Division of the High Court, Mr. Justice Puletla Letsi, Honorable Judge President of the Eastern Cape Division of the High Court, Mr. Selby Mbenenge, Honorable Madam Justice Margaret Victor, representing the Judge President of the Gauteng Division of the High Court, Honorable Madam Justice Soma Naidu, representing the Judge President of the Free State Division of the High Court, Honorable Madam Justice Daya Pillay, Judge of the KwaZulu-Natal Division of the High Court and Commissioner of the IEC, Chairperson of the IEC, Mr. Glenn Mashinini, Deputy Chairperson of the IEC, Ms. Janet Love, IEC Commissioners present, IEC CEO, Mr. Sai Mamabolo, and the IEC Management, Secretary General of the Office of the Chief Justice, Ms. Mmes Josingwe, Acting Secretary of Parliament, Ms. Baby Chawa, Secretary of the National Assembly, Mr. Masubele Masibulele Kaso, Secretary to the NCOP, Advocate Modibedi Pimbela, Secretaries of the Provincial Legislatures, OCJ officials, officials from Parliament, officials from the IEC, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a singular honor and rare privilege that I rise to welcome all of you on this momentous occasion marking the handing over of the list of designated members of the National Assembly and provincial legislatures to the Chief Justice by the Chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, that is the IEC. Pursuant to the receipt of the list, the Chief Justice will hand over to the Acting Secretary of Parliament, Ms. Baby Kwala, and thereafter the list will be handed over by the Chief Justice to the Acting Secretary of Parliament. On the 8th of May 2019, which is exactly a week ago to this day, millions of South Africans headed to the polls to exercise their hard-earned constitutional right to vote in the national and provincial elections. And now that the elections are over and done with, the results having been announced by the IEC, the time has come for the constitution of the new administration. The process of establishing this administration starts today and here and now with the handing over of the list of persons elected to the National Assembly and the provincial legislatures that we, as well as the entire people of South Africa, will be witnessing this afternoon. This handover ceremony is significant to our democracy as it forms part of the chain that will usher in the new legislative arm of the state charged with the responsibility of ensuring that laws are enacted and, most importantly, overseeing the effective performance of the organs of state. In addition, this handover ceremony affirms the central role that the judiciary as an arm of state plays in our democracy. As we are all aware, our Constitution enjoins the Chief Justice as well as the judiciary to ensure that Parliament and the provincial legislatures are constitutionally constituted. And under the leadership of the Chief Justice, the judiciary will indeed discharge this constitutional mandate, thereby ensuring that the state is enabled to function in a manner that the founders of our Constitution envisaged. As we are gathered here in this historic site, we are witnesses to democracy in action. And with these few words, I would like to welcome each and every one of you to this momentous occasion wherein the chairperson of the IEC will be handing over the list of persons elected to the National Assembly and provincial legislatures. I thank you all, and you're welcome.
Thank you, Judge President. I think most people have learned three things today. That one, this occasion is important in that it starts a process that will culminate into members of parliament being sworn in, president being elected, and then people going back to start doing what they've been elected to do. So we thank you for those few words and the emphasis in that our democracy places on the judiciary, and we are very proud of what the judiciary has done so far. I would now move on to ask Mr. Mashinini if he could come and join us here and also give us some few words before we get to the actual event. Mr. Mashinini.
Thank you, Program Director, Mr. Ngube, Honorable Chief Justice Mogoeng, Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Ms. Thandi Modise, Honorable Justices of the Constitutional Court present here today, Judge President of the Northwest Division of the High Court, Judge Monica Lieu, and other judges, judge presidents and deputy judge presidents that are present with us. Vice Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Ms. Janet Love, fellow commissioners, Judge Dyer, Dr. Masugu, and Commissioner Miepe. Together with us is the Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Sai Mamabulo, the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Masejo Shiburi, and our Acting Chief Electoral Officer, Mr. Mawetu Mosri, and all senior members of the Electoral Commission represented here today. Also the Secretary General of the Office of the Chief Justice, Ms. Meme Sijosenkwe, and staff of the Chief Justice present here. Acting Secretary to Parliament, Ms. Penlope Chawa, members of the Electoral Commission present, members of the media with us here today, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As far as most people are concerned, the national and provincial elections of 2019 ended on Saturday when the Commission discharged its duty and pronounced the elections free and fair. But in fact, there is a final step, as already indicated, in the election process, which is to translate the more than 34 million valid votes that were cast during the election into a final list of elected candidates who will then represent the voters in the provincial legislature as well as our National Assembly for the next coming 5 years. In terms of item 16 of Schedule 1A of the Electoral Act, which is the Act 73 of 1998, requires, I quote, after counting the votes has been concluded, the number of representatives of each party has been determined and the election results have been declared in terms of Section 190 of the Constitution. The Commission must, within 2 days after such a declaration, designate from each list of candidates the representatives of each party in the legislature, close quote. Today, ladies and gentlemen, the Commission gazetted the list of final designated designated people, and it is our privilege as the Commission to present this list to the Honorable Chief Justice of South Africa, Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng, and this then would be the list that identify the individuals destined to be members of our national parliament and members of our provincial legislature. This indeed marks the final milestone in a journey which began for us in the Commission nearly 2 years ago when we started the preparations for the 6th national and provincial elections in our 25th anniversary of our young democracy. Indeed, this is an extraordinary undertaking that the Commission has just undergone, and it involved 78 political parties. Over 14,000 candidates were involved, 26.7 million registered voters, and if you combine national and provincial, almost 34.5 million valid votes cast for both those levels or tiers, and involved in 22,924 voting stations in South Africa and 121 foreign missions around the world. And all of these were staffed by nearly 200,000 volunteers who were helping in the conducting these elections. Distinguished guests, after the counting of the ballots and finalizing results, we can now announce the list of 830 individual candidates who will represent the people of South Africa. 400 of those would be to the National Assembly, and the other remaining 430 would be destined for the 9 provincial legislatures. Between them, the 830 individuals, they represent the diversity of our country in all its vibrant colors, cultures, languages, religions, and tradition. They indeed manifest the rainbow nation that has characterized our country since the dawn of the new democracy. In terms of gender, of the 400 MPs, 45.25% are women. This marks an increase of 3% compared to 2014, when it was 42% were constituted by women. The provincial legislature with the best gender equity is Mpumalanga province, where half of the members will be women. And the provincial legislature with the lowest gender representativity is the Western Cape, where just 35.71% of representatives are women. With respect to the age, the average age of our members of parliament is 50 years old. The same average which we had in 2014. And the oldest or the most senior member of parliament will be the honorable leader of Inkatha Freedom Party, Dr. Mangosuthu Buthelezi, at 90 years young. Sheng. And the youngest member of parliament will be 23-year-old Mr. Sibongiseni Ngobo of the Democratic Alliance. And the youngest member of the provincial legislature is a 21-year-old Karabo Khachau, who will represent the Democratic Alliance in the Free State legislature. Distinguished guests, it is fitting that we hand over the list here at the Constitutional Court because our electoral democracy is firmly rooted in our Constitution and the rule of law. 25 years after our first democratic election, we can proudly say as a nation that we remain firmly rooted in the democratic ideals that we adopted in 1994, and our country remains a shining beacon of democracy and human rights for all. The Electoral Commission would like to then take this opportunity to thank the citizens of South Africa for their participation and support in delivering yet another free, fair, and peaceful election. To all the political parties, their leaders, the voters, the volunteers, the security agencies, as well as strategic partners in our electoral success, the Commission offers its humble gratitude and the deepest appreciation. We say without you, without your support, without that cooperation, it would have been next to impossible for us to have delivered these elections. And we also take this opportunity to thank the Chief Justice and the Constitutional Court members of a judiciary for their guidance and wisdom in providing clarity on certainty over the rights of voters whose addresses had not yet been captured on the voters' roll. Having been elected through a system of proportional representation, the 830 candidates represent 15 political parties, 14 of which will be represented in our National Assembly, and one additional party will be represented in the Mpumalanga legislature. But importantly, ladies and gentlemen, these candidates also represent all South Africans, whether they voted for their parties or not. On behalf of the Electoral Commission, we congratulate all the candidates who have won representation and call on them to uphold the Constitution and the laws of South Africa and to discharge their duties to the best of their ability. Being elected is just one part. The real work only begins after this. I thank you.
Sir, before you go, I think I'm going to ask the Chief Justice and the Acting Secretary of Parliament and yourself to go and stand in front of the podium so you can then start handing over the list, and we will then come back to do this. If you may go and join those people over there. Well, this is the moment. Seb, we are watching. You may hand it over.
On behalf of the Electoral Commission, we would like to hand to you, Chief Justice, the two details of candidates, both of the national as well as the provincial representatives to the National Assembly and to the provincial, 9 provincial legislatures. And I think this marks the ending of the waiting for this electoral journey. And thank you very much.
Well, the next step is that the Chief Justice must now hand over to the Acting Secretary of Parliament, Ms. Chow. Chief Justice, I'm going to ask you to hand over to the
Over to you. I'm sure you'll make sure that nobody who doesn't qualify to enter Parliament is here.
Thank you. Well, Ms. Chawa, we've had good things that come from Mr. Mashinini. I'm going to ask you to come and join us before you even sit down. Mr. Mashinini has told us, I think what is encouraging for South Africa, that there are a lot of young people, and he's been gracious to name them, that we're going to have a very young parliament. So I'm encouraged. But I must also applaud them for the good work that they've done. Mr. Mashinini, I have been voting since 1994, so we are very proud of the work that you continue to do as the IEC. Madam, I'm going to ask you to take the podium and just to give us a few remarks after receiving the list. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. All protocol observed. I think I just want to say today, unlike in 2014, we are receiving this Chief Justice with one of our executive authority Honorable Memodise, and we're delighted that as senior officials of Parliament, we've come with our political principle. 2014, we came by ourselves. I must just reassure the Chief Justice, IEC, that we, as the foot soldiers of Parliament, senior managers of Parliament, are ready indeed to receive the members, ease them into their jobs, and support them for the next 5 years. Not without challenges, and indeed some of those challenges will be met as we come out. And out of this, we've also realized that as Parliament and my colleagues, one of the things we're going to intensify is a lot of public education around constitutional democracy in the country. And I wish to thank everybody else and the guidance that we've received, both from the Chief Justice, as we obviously receive him again, to work with him to ensure that at least the National Assembly is set up, and of course, subsequent to that, the National Council of Provinces and the various legislatures. I wish to thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Very brief and to the point. We thank you for those words. I'm not going to waste any time. I think I'm going to call upon Madam Chairperson, Madam Modise, to also come and give us a few words. And after that, I will then hand over to the Honorable Chief Justice. Madam.
Thank you very much. I'm almost thinking I'm breaking the protocol by being here. Chief Justice, Judge President Leo, all the other Judge Presidents, judges, the IEC, ladies and gentlemen, we must say that we're very proud as South Africans to have reached the 6th election, which in the capable hands of the IEC has once again gone smoothly, which we think was the most challenging of all the elections, because for the first time in my province you had 45 parties competing. It must have been a hell of a job to do. So we want to say once again that through and through, we are proud to have the IEC as a midwife of democracy, as the watcher, as the guide, as that big watchman with a big, big stick that puts us all back into line, as the guarantor of every South African having the right to choose, whether they are educated, whether they are in the rural areas, whether they are urban, whether they are rich and poor. We're very proud of the IEC of South Africa. We want to thank you for wherever we are. We can assure you, as Major has said, that all the houses of Parliament are ready. And perhaps just to clear up, the job I hold ends only on the eve of the new members of the NCOP, so I'm still legitimately the chairperson of the NCOP. It is a house that represents the provinces. So that is the second reason why I will be here, because as the provinces and the provincial speakers are here, we do keep a keen eye on what goes on in the provinces. We guide, we help where we need to do. In fact, I keep on saying to South Africans, the upper house of South Africa, the NCOP, is more strategic than it is being given. It is the house that is uppermost in intergovernmental relations. It regulates, it mediates. So far as Chief Justice, it has not been able to flex the muscle it has, especially around Section 139. Hopefully in the future, it will be the house that makes South Africa proud, because it has those powers which the National Assembly does not have. So, thank you very much, and I can bet that On the day of swearing in of members, there shall be peace in the corridors of Parliament, and there shall be love for our different constituencies, and there shall be protection of all the powers and rights of the ordinary citizen who has elected whoever they have elected, and they shall be seen by the presiding officers of South Africa as equal members, representing the equal South African citizens. Ke a leboha.
Thank you, Chairperson Madam Tani Modise, for those words. I am sure that the citizenry of South Africa is encouraged. Because we are running a little bit behind, I think I should allow the Chief Justice, if I may call upon him, to come and give us his short address. Chief Justice.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. No, you can leave it. I'll take it. The Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mayor Tandi Modise, and to observe the protocol strictly for the occasion, the Chair of the IEC, Mr. Glenn Mashinini, and the Deputy Chair and Commissioners, Judge President Leo, the most senior Judge President present, my colleague, the Judges Presidents, and those representing the Judges Presidents, colleagues in the Constitutional Court, our hosts, other members of the IEC, the Chief Executive Officer of the IEC, Mr. Simon Mabolo, and his deputy, Mr. Shiburi, the head of the IEC in the Kingdom, Mr. Mosri, secretaries to the acting secretary to Parliament, and secretaries to provincial legislatures, the secretary to the National Assembly, Mr. Taso, and the secretary to the NCOP, Mr. Pindela, officials from Parliament and provincial legislatures, the Secretary General of the Office of the Chief Justice, Messi Josengwe, other officials from the OCJ, members of the media, distinguished guests, I greet you. I also just want to pause and appreciate the IEC for a job well done from the look of things. There is no guarantee what the outcome would be should your decisions be challenged, but from the look of things, you've done well. And I want to congratulate you for that. And I take pride in this particular IEC because almost without exception, I've had the privilege of chairing the panel that interviewed all of you. The chair, the deputy chair, Mr. Moepa, and Dr. Makubu, and who else? Justice, Madam Justice Pillay. And you haven't disappointed. I particularly just want to appreciate the effectiveness of our democracy in relation to two of the members, and that is the chair, Mr. Moepa. Because had it not been for the independence of our constitutional institutions, you would never have been appointed. The two of you were singled out for unprecedented attack. which is good in a democratic setting because we do have institutions that appreciate the critical role that they have to play in ensuring that we don't get guided by anything else or anybody but the Constitution, the law, and the dictates of justice, equity, and fairness. And happily, contrary to the criticism, you've acquitted yourselves very well. From your examples, the two of you and the collective, including Mr. Simon Mabulu and his team, may every South African privileged to occupy high office take cue from how you have discharged your responsibilities without any fear, favor, or prejudice. Where to from here? I have published the rules in terms of which the sittings of the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, and the provincial legislatures will govern their proceedings. I've revised them, caused them to be gazetted, and I believe that everybody who needs to have them now has them. And two, let me announce that the 22nd of May, 2019 has been determined as the date on which the first sitting of the National Assembly will take place. And I suspect that my colleagues in the provinces will take cue from that. My understanding is that the Constitution deprives me of the power to determine the sitting in the provinces once I've designated my authority to you as I have done. And the sitting of the National Council of Provinces has been determined as the 23rd of May, 2019. And as you know, on the 22nd, it means not only will members of the National Assembly take their oath or affirmation of office, but the Speaker of the National Assembly and the President of the Republic will be elected by members of the National Assembly. It's a responsibility I discharge that on that day I act as the Speaker. I hope nobody will have a slip of tongue and say, Madam Speaker, referring to me. And on the 23rd, it would then be for the National Council of Provinces members, new members to be sworn in, the chair to be elected, and their deputies, of course, will be elected as when the new speaker in the NA and the chairperson will be presiding. So we gathered to remind ourselves that we were here, we have been here for 25 years as South Africans. And the people of South Africa have spoken. They've elected those that they have confidence in not to betray the Constitution of South Africa, its spirit, object, and purpose. It is a happy coincidence that the names are handed over to me and then to Parliament at the Constitutional Court, the highest court in the land, and my colleagues are here to witness it. The challenges of this country has never been more pronounced. And I can only plead with all those who are going to assume the responsibility as members of Parliament and provincial legislature, and those who are going to be members of the executive, to never forget what we all undertake, particularly those of us privileged to be constitutional office bearers, what we undertake to do in terms of the preamble to our Constitution. We must never forget that right at the top there, we called upon and we undertake to recognize the injustices of the past. Every member of parliament, every member of the executive, every member of the judiciary, every member of the public, and even those in the private sector, ought never to forget that there were injustices and they are yet to be eliminated. We dare not be defocused from the primary responsibility of ensuring that people do not continue to swim in the injustices of the past as if all that the new phase of the life of South Africa is about is just to cast the vote. Political freedom or political justice we have. But what else? It's of cardinal importance that the unresolved issues that constitute an integral part of those injustices of the past that we must recognize at all times receive urgent attention. We over-celebrate the power we have. We're too protective of our positions. And some, possibly, get tempted to use state resources for purposes they were never intended for. Let's sharpen our focus on what matters the most. For those in my village and any other village, for those in townships, because injustice is unsustainable. You leave it lingering on for some time, you defer the hopes encapsulated by our preamble and our Constitution at the risk of allowing a crisis to come into being. So let us never forget. I will be privileged, and so will my colleagues, the judges president, to administer oaths and affirmations of office to members of the National Assembly, NCOP, and provincial legislatures, and members of the executive. Affording them the opportunity to declare openly what they are going to do, to express an appreciation of the enormity of the responsibilities that are going to be placed on their shoulders by the people of South Africa. Hopefully, 25 years down the line, we will look back and smile. I was asked a question in the number of interviews that I had today by a member of the public. I was basically saying, aren't you ashamed that you will be administering an oath to some of these people? It was a very difficult question. And I can only hope that none of those to whom an oath of office will be administered would see that exercise as just one of those inconvenient processes one has to go through, itching to occupy an office rather than determined to internalize the magnitude, the enormity of the responsibility that he or she is publicly declaring to the nation that they will discharge. We need a parliament. We need a provincial legislature that holds the executive accountable. We need the executive at all levels that carries out its constitutional and statutory responsibilities. We need institutions designed to strengthen our constitutional democracy that are neither threatened by the executive, parliament, or anybody. Going forward, given the cry out there about whether or not our institutions meant to strengthen our constitutional democracy are as independent as they ought to be, I think particular attention needs to be paid to these institutions. Are they properly resourced? Do you have competent people occupying these positions of high responsibility? Is there overt or subtle interference? It's important. So South Africans must be on high alert. They must be more vigilant than ever before to expose any manipulation of functionaries in state institutions that ought to get us out of these problems in which we find ourselves trapped. If there is one thing we must be alive to, it is that power is dangerous. Once you have it, it pushes you to the point where you want to control everybody as you please. And there is a discomfort that comes with seeking to hold people accountable. There are consequences for espousing ethical leadership. There are consequences for seeking to do it only in terms of the Constitution and the law. The challenge to all of us is to stop kowtowing to corrupt leadership wherever it is to be found. We would never have been where we are right now had everybody been doing what they often take an oath to do, but more importantly, had public servants and other functionaries in state-owned enterprises been faithful to the undertakings they made to the people of South Africa. So let's look for ways, all of us, let us always be thinking about what is it that needs to be done to take South Africa where it needs to be taken to, and discard the selfishness that informs why we are protective of our space, our jobs, even when the need arises to speak truth to power. The preamble to the Constitution says we must honor those who suffered for the cause of justice and freedom. Many of them spent time in this prison here. Many of them died. It's a betrayal of the highest order, not only by members of the judiciary, the executive and parliament, but even functionaries in the government sector and in the private sector who wouldn't care less about the plight of those who are dying of hunger, some of whom are forced into criminality as a way of survival, the unemployment of the multitudes of our people out there, all as long as we are comfortable. Never forget those who died for you to occupy this positions of privilege. Never forget about those who were imprisoned and their families were ruined just so that you can occupy that comfortable position that causes you to compromise principles when integrity demands that you stand up and say, if it means I must die, so be it. At least it will be for a good cause. It's a thing of great shame for any of us to cooperate with corruption practitioners simply because of the enormity of the power they will. I think these elections, Chair of the NCOP and of the IEC, marks a defining moment, a turning point in the history of South Africa. In biblical terms, it's very much like having been in the wilderness under the leadership of Moses for a long time and having to move on to the land that flows with milk and honey. And that will only happen if we are true to the obligations imposed on us by the responsibility that we have so gladly assumed. Let us not betray our people. Let us not dishonor and betray those who died, those who suffered. They did it so that our Constitution can become a practical reality, both in terms of political freedom, land ownership, all of us, South Africa belonging to us, meaningful participation in the economy. Not this thing of others are just running taverns, it's drunkenness everywhere. Meaningful participation in the economy, freedom from all forms of prejudice, racism, and whatever else, so that we can be that shining example that the African continent has been expecting us to be. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Justice. As always, you spoke so profoundly, and it will be suicidal of me to attempt to even try and pick any one of the things that you have said. But I think we should all feel privileged in that we have amongst us the Chief Justice that freely shares his wisdom with us, and I think we will do well if we tap into that whenever he is available. Before we go to closure, I just want to apologize on behalf of Mr. Mashinini, the chairperson. He has indicated that when they were editing his speech, he omitted, there was an omission to acknowledge the chairperson of the NCOP, Madam Modise. So he apologizes profusely, so I extend that on his behalf. We have, in essence, at the end of our program, I wish to thank all of you for attending, our dignitaries, members of IEC, the judiciary in particular, and the members of the media and my colleagues who are here. But before we leave, we have slaughtered, so I would like that you please join us just around the corner here. It is tradition where I come from that when you have guests, you slaughter. So we have slaughtered, and please join us around the corner. To the media, those who would like to interview anyone of the judiciary who speak to me, I will indicate if they're available or not. If you would like to interview any of our dignitaries, Mr. Mashinini, the NCOP chairperson, or the acting Secretary of Parliament, you may speak to Ms. Kate Bapela and Mr. Mutapa, I think is here, so you may approach them. I wish to thank you once more for being such a good audience. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, please. Just quickly, media, if you want to take a photo opportunity with our dignitaries, I'm going to put them there in front.